Finally, an easy one, the Kansas City Chiefs. 2 years ago, they won every close game. Last year, they lost every close game, 1-9. You know, you're going to get in the middle somewhere around there. Also, their offensive tackle position, when Josh Simmons wasn't playing, and he's really talented, was a mess. He's back. Mahomes is healthy. Travis Kelce, I argued for him to return one more year. Listen, you just have to be honest about it. When you're drafting at the bottom of rounds, it's really hard. GMs will tell you, after about the 18th pick, you wish you could just have more second and third round picks. They're going to be fine. They're going to improve. 6-11, my guess, becomes 11-6.
The current health status of Patrick Mahomes introduces an unusually complex variable into the forthcoming competitive calculus. There is an undeniable uncertainty surrounding his physical condition at this moment. And while the broader media ecosystem will inevitably devote extensive bandwidth to speculative recovery timelines, predicting which week he returns, what his mobility profile resembles, how aggressively he can plant and drive, I am deliberately abstaining from that entire enterprise. The content of medical reports, the trajectory of rehabilitation trends, the optimistic prognostications from anonymous team sources, these artifacts hold no analytical weight for me. I have accumulated sufficient personal experience with significant injury, have undergone enough surgical interventions, have observed enough athletic comebacks across multiple sports to recognize that this domain resists tidy prediction. Furthermore, this is Patrick Mahomes. This is not an anonymous quarterback competing for a roster spot or a veteran on a non-guaranteed deal. This is the singular most valuable asset in the National Football League, housed within an organization that understands exactly what he represents. The standard protocols that apply to conventional players simply do not operate identically here. When a conventional quarterback reports feeling reasonably functional, the organizational impulse is often expediency. When Patrick Mahomes reports feeling reasonably functional, the organizational impulse is exhaustive caution. You do not rush Mahomes back. You do not cut corners in his rehabilitation sequencing. You do not prioritize September availability over January functionality. You exercise exhaustive due diligence. You elongate the timeline conservatively. You ensure absolute, unambiguous readiness before exposing him to competitive contact. Consequently, I am not attempting to forecast his return with any specificity. I hope, genuinely, that he is healthy and participating when the regular season commences. The league is demonstrably more compelling when Mahomes is operating at full capacity. However, my curiosity is oriented elsewhere, not toward his availability timeline, but toward the phenomenological experience of his return to play. This is not fundamentally a question of physical capacity. I am not anticipating irreversible decline or permanent athletic diminishment. The question is psychological and proprioceptive. It concerns trust. It concerns the relationship between an athlete and a body that has been traumatically altered. It requires time to redevelop trust in compromised anatomy. His body will feel subjectively different now. He will experience sensations in that knee, in those supporting musculatures, that are entirely unfamiliar. There will be unfamiliar soreness. There will be atypical stiffness. There will be moments where normal physiological feedback loops generate inappropriate alarm signals. Previously, specific somatic sensations reliably indicated pathology. Now, those identical sensations may represent normal post-surgical adaptation. Scar tissue, routine inflammation, the permanent residuum of invasive intervention. Distinguishing between benign adaptation and genuine compromise is a cognitive skill that requires experiential development. That developmental process cannot be artificially accelerated. It unfolds according to its own temporal logic. Therefore, should Mahomes indeed commence the season in September, I would not be remotely surprised to observe a measured, deliberate opening segment. The characteristic explosiveness may manifest episodically rather than consistently. The signature improvisational sequences may be deployed more judiciously. The processing velocity remains unchanged, but the physical execution may require recalibration. Week 6, Week 7, Week 8. Somewhere within that corridor, the integrated mind-body system typically achieves reharmonization. These are not deficiencies. They are the inevitable artifacts of significant athletic trauma. There are simply too many variables converging simultaneously to support confident prediction. None of this suggests organizational decline. Even a Mahomes operating below his personal baseline, still acclimating to his reconfigured anatomy, still rebuilding subconscious trust in his foundational mobility, elevates this franchise above the 6-win threshold with comfortable margin. The Chiefs' floor, even under compromised circumstances, remains elevated relative to the league average. My analytical orientation toward Kansas City, however, operates at a different level of abstraction. The Chiefs will be fundamentally excellent regardless of surrounding conditions. This is not speculative optimism. It is empirical extrapolation from sustained behavioral evidence. The organizational infrastructure is secure. The coaching personnel on both perimeters demonstrate consistent, elite performance. The quarterback, even during transitional physical adjustment, remains a transformative presence. The front office has institutionalized sustainable excellence. Consequently, the more salient variable is not the absolute quality of the Chiefs, but the relative quality of their competitive ecosystem. The genuinely dispositive question is this: do the organizations surrounding Kansas City elevate their own trajectories? Do the Bills ascend into more formidable contention configuration? Do the Ravens optimize their considerable infrastructural advantages? Do the Chargers translate theoretical roster superiority into tangible competitive threat? Do the Broncos validate their developmental trajectory as organic progression rather than anomalous blip? Do the Jaguars finally consolidate their considerable offensive weaponry into coherent contention? Do the Texans confirm their emergence as legitimate conference threat? I recognize this formulation generates reflexive resistance within certain segments of Chiefs partisanship. The instinctive response is categorical negation. I encourage respectfully a more empirically grounded orientation. The Jaguars are objectively more competitive than their recent historical baselines. The Chargers, conditional upon offensive line health, which is admittedly not a trivial contingency, have unambiguously upgraded their coaching infrastructure and should manifest measurable improvement. The Broncos' 2023 campaign was not stochastic noise. It represented authentic organizational progression. Repetition does not transform empirical reality into fallacy. Simultaneously, the competitive landscape contains inherent flux. The Bills' championship window, while not sealed, exhibits different structural characteristics than its previous iteration. The Ravens' persistent postseason shortfall may reflect systemic rather than stochastic factors. The Bengals' capacity to escape organizational entropy remains an open, empirical question. The Browns appear structurally incapable of near-term contention. The Steelers, while perennially competitive, lack the offensive firepower to genuinely threaten elite conference opposition. The NFC, meanwhile, presents its own chaotic tapestry of uncertainty. Are the Eagles undergoing recalibration or retrenchment? Are the Cowboys perpetually cycling without genuine destination? Substantial ambiguity therefore persists across the competitive landscape. However, the decisive variable in Kansas City's dynastic run has never been exclusively their intrinsic excellence. That excellence was necessary, but not sufficient. The catalytic ingredient was experiential asymmetry. The Andy Reid, Steve Spagnuolo, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce core had accumulated thousands of high-leverage competitive repetitions across championship stages, conference title games, fourth-quarter pressure sequences, 2-minute emergencies, and Super Bowl finality. They confronted opponents who, regardless of regular season success, were navigating those experiential thresholds for the first time. Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, possessing a 2-point lead or confronting a 4-point deficit with 3 minutes remaining, were operating within familiar procedural memory. Their opponents, in those same circumstances, were processing unprecedented psychological load. That asymmetry is gradually, inexorably eroding. The league has accumulated experiential currency. Sam Darnold, once dismissed as insufficiently seasoned for championship gravity, now carries his own reservoir of high-leverage repetitions. Drake May, despite current fashionable denigration, has accumulated experiential capital this season that was entirely absent from his professional ledger 12 months prior. Trevor Lawrence's experiential portfolio, while containing both positive and negative entries, is substantially more developed than at any previous juncture. Justin Herbert, despite organizational underachievement, has navigated playoff intensities that fundamentally alter cognitive processing during critical moments. Simultaneously, The distribution of elite coaching acumen has never been more democratized. The league is experiencing an unprecedented concentration of sophisticated schematic minds across multiple franchises. This is not the ecosystem that enabled New England's extended dynastic supremacy or Kansas City's current dynastic run. Those dynasties were constructed not only upon their own excellence, but upon the comparative deficit of excellence distributed throughout the competitive environment. Tom Brady and Bill Belichick exploited that asymmetry systematically. Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid have exploited that asymmetry comprehensively. This is not derogation, it is contextualization. The Patriots and Chiefs represent the two most formidable, sustained competitive enterprises of the modern era. Their achievements are not diminished by acknowledging the environmental conditions that enabled them. They maximize their advantages, including the comparative inexperience and infrastructural deficits of their opposition. That is what dynasties do. That is how sustained supremacy is operationalized. I'm increasingly persuaded, however, that we are transitioning beyond that environmental configuration. The experiential and coaching gaps that Kansas City previously weaponized are contracting. The Chiefs remain great. The Chiefs should be improved relative to their own substandard previous iteration. Any season following a down year for this organization should produce positive regression. When you provide Patrick Mahomes functional pocket protection, adequate defensive infrastructure, and competent perimeter weaponry, the outcome algorithm is straightforward. Andy Reid's situational play-calling genius, Mahomes' improvisational capacity, the organizational institutional memory of high-leverage execution, these assets do not depreciate. The Chiefs will win substantial regular season contests. They will prevail in close games. They will manifest their characteristic fourth-quarter resolution. If the organization further augments its personnel with elite perimeter talent, their ceiling elevates correspondingly. This repertoire remains perpetually accessible to the Kansas City Chiefs. Perpetually. The variable outside their direct control, however, is the quality gradient of the surrounding competitive field. Historically, providing the Chiefs even marginal situational advantage rendered the outcome functionally predetermined. That deterministic relationship has attenuated. This is not attributable to Kansas City's diminished capacity. Their capacity remains intact. The modification originates externally. Other organizations now possess some of the advantages that were previously Kansas City's exclusive province. Trevor Lawrence now collaborates with Liam Cohen. This matters. Bo Nix now operates within Sean Payton's offensive architecture. This matters. Justin Herbert now benefits from Mike McDonald's defensive infrastructure and whatever offensive coordination emerges. This matters. In several seasons, the potential pairing of Drake May's successor with Clint Kubiak's schematic sophistication may represent another significant competitive development. The AFC West alone is undergoing qualitative transformation that cannot be dismissed. This contextual evolution, aggregated across multiple franchises, fundamentally modifies the competitive ecology the Chiefs inhabit. My analytical framework for Kansas City is therefore not structured around conventional trending upward or trending downward categories. That vernacular is insufficiently precise for an organization of this caliber. I evaluate the Chiefs through binary excellence classification. Are they operating as an elite, dominant, front-running Super Bowl favorite, against whom opposition harbors legitimate trepidation? Or have they descended into a secondary tier of mere contention viability? This is not to suggest that the space between these classifications represents irrelevance. There is substantial competitive territory between dynastic hegemony and organizational obsolescence. However, my evaluative lens for Kansas City is calibrated to dynasty standards. I have articulated this position repeatedly and will continue to do so. Patrick Mahomes' entire career constitutes the dynasty. The temporal segmentation into discrete dynastic chapters misapprehends the phenomenon. His presence continuously is the dynastic condition. Therefore, the conventional discourse regarding whether the Chiefs will improve this season is analytically inert. It conveys no meaningful information. The Chiefs exist in a permanent state of Super Bowl or bust. Every season, the championship is the exclusive validating outcome. They are categorically distinct from franchises that have recently secured championships, including the Seattle Seahawks. The analytical apparatus I apply to Seattle is fundamentally incompatible with the apparatus I apply to Kansas City. My expectation architecture for the Chiefs is qualitatively different. I anticipate sustained annual excellence as the default condition. I anticipate other organizations to demonstrate competitive volatility in ways I would not anticipate from Kansas City. The trending conversation, therefore, while not technically inaccurate, operates at insufficient depth. Yes, the Chiefs will likely improve. That observation, standing alone, illuminates nothing. The more substantive inquiry concerns whether they can reassert the experiential and qualitative asymmetries that historically rendered them competitively insurmountable, or whether the progressive maturation of the competitive ecosystem has permanently attenuated that advantage. These reflections constitute my personal assessment. I am genuinely eager to receive your alternative formulations. What is your evaluative judgment regarding the Kansas City Chiefs? Do you perceive their trajectory as positively oriented? Will they reestablish themselves as unequivocal Super Bowl frontrunners, or has the competitive recalibration of the conference permanently modified their positional standing? I invite you to articulate your positions within the comment infrastructure. I commit to comprehensive examination of each submission. Whether your orientation aligns with or diverges from my own, I welcome substantive engagement. Let us deliberate. Let us constructively dispute. Ultimately, let us derive satisfaction from this collective exercise. I also formally request your consideration of channel subscription. We are cooperatively cultivating an exceptional community in this space, and your participatory inclusion would be authentically valued. My aspirational objective is the construction of a collective environment characterized by genuine mutual connection, a community we authentically experience enthusiasm about joining. I am persuaded we are making significant progress toward this objective. Please also consider bestowing affirmative acknowledgement upon this video content, as it materially enhances content visibility and algorithmic discoverability. I express my profound gratitude. I will convene with you in the subsequent installment.